Hi, this is Angela G from No Longer Lukewarm for Red Hot Christians and Wannabes. These videos are for those of you who like to listen while you're maybe doing something else. For those of you who like to read my blogs, you can find that link in the description box below. So this one is called Trust the Master, 3 Lessons from My Cat. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, a minor tragedy happened in our home. My cat Nikta, pronounced Nikta, and meaning night in Greek, broke his leg. The events surrounding his injury and recovery brought me face to face with my own reactions to God when things happen in my life that bring me pain. In fact, recently, I think I was a little hurt at God. My experience with my cat really made me think about God's love for me and convicted me about my own actions and attitudes. I believe that this is an important message for all of us to remember for a future that will bring some difficult days. When tragedy strikes, we must trust the Master. The animals. We have 2 cats and 3 German Shepherds. Usually they're great buddies. My 2 younger dogs move kind of fast for my cats, but my older dog Xena is both of my cats' best friend and cat warmer during the winter months. Of all the animals, Nikta is my baby. He is my cat, and I am his person. He is the most loving cat I have ever had. Nikta will jump on my lap and ram his head into me, snuggling and purring. He comes into my prayer closet almost every night, especially during the winter months, cuddling under the blanket with me and purring softly while I read my Bible. The injury. The day it happened, my husband and I were both at home. It was 10 a.m. when my husband let the dogs out into the backyard. As soon as he did, we heard a cat in distress. My husband rushed out to see that my 2 younger dogs had Nikta pinned. This was the first time I ever remembered my cat even going into the backyard. He goes in and out, but always through the front. The dogs either didn't recognize him at first or did and were just playing. Usually he gets away when they charge, but this time they caught him. On hindsight, we wondered if he had fallen from the fence and hurt his leg before the dogs even got to him. That would make sense, since he usually gets away when our dogs try to herd him. My husband yelled, and one dog, Leo, backed up. Our youngest dog, Angel, kept him pinned until my husband got there and pulled her off. Nikta scrambled away, over the fence and up onto the neighbor's roof. I went out in the front yard and called and called. He wouldn't come down. My husband was still experiencing symptoms of COVID and was in no condition to go roof climbing. We decided to let him be for a while. Nikta finally came home. Every few minutes for the next few hours we called him. He had disappeared from the roof, and we weren't sure if he was hurt or just scared or even angry. He finally came home around 2 p.m. We were just about to eat a late lunch when my husband heard him at the front door. He opened the door and Nikta limped in. He went straight to my chair, hopped up, and buried himself in my lap. When we realized there was something really wrong with his leg, we took him to the emergency vet. The vet split into the leg, see the picture, but said it was a complete fracture. He would need surgery. By the time we picked him back up from the vet, it was after 9 p.m. The next day was Thanksgiving, so no one would even be open to call. He would just have to stay in a splint for a while. The medicine. The emergency vet gave him a liquid pain medicine that we were to administer every 12 hours. The vet warned us that it was very bitter and we would have to put it down his throat using a syringe-type dropper. To say Nikta didn't like it would be an understatement. It was pretty traumatic for all of us, actually. I would hold him, grabbing him by the scruff and prying open his teeth. My husband would then use the dropper to get the medicine in. When it was done, Nikta would sniff and spit, saliva dripping from his mouth. We would give him wet food right after as a treat, but it was rough. The surgery. Long story short, after many calls and emails to local vets, we finally found a vet who could do the surgery that next Thursday. My husband brought him in that morning and picked him up the next day since I was at work. Because of the complications, cost, and recovery time with repair, we chose to amputate my poor sweet baby's leg. He would need 2 weeks more of healing and more medicine. After his whole 2-day ordeal with the vet, he was resting in our computer room where his food and litter box are. As soon as I got home from work, I went to see him. I was talking to him softly and sat down on the floor to pet him. Immediately, he got up, wobbly on 3 legs, and even more awkward because of the plastic cone around his head that would keep him from biting at his stitches. He stumbled over and fell into my lap. He was purring and rubbing his head on me, cone and all. Lessons learned from my cat. Throughout the ordeal, I noticed how it felt to be a master. My cat is mine. I picked him out and paid for him. I feed him and take care of all his needs. When he is hurting, I'm hurting too. I want to be right there with him to comfort him. And when he needs something, even if it feels like I'm hurting him more to provide it, I have to do it. I couldn't help but see the parallel to God's relationship to me. I'm his child. He bought me with a price and called me into his service. He takes care of all my needs. When I'm in pain, he is with me and feels my pain. And sometimes I know that the things I need aren't always the things that feel good at the time. But he provides those too. I have to trust the Master. Number 1. When tragedy strikes, we often pull away. When my cat was hurt, his first instinct was to get away. He got up to the neighbor's roof, and even our voices couldn't get him to come down. Nikta was afraid. He knew that for the moment he was safe on the roof, so he stayed instead of coming back right away to allow us to help him. Often when we're hurt, we do the same thing. We back up and close ourselves off from the things that hurt us, but in the process we can also pull away from God. My recent bout with COVID-19 was a big deal for me. It hurt so much for so long, and I wondered why God had allowed it. Almost from the beginning, I wasn't afraid of the virus. I wore masks to be kind to others who were worried, but I always said, God is in control, which to me meant that he would protect me from getting sick. When I did get sick, all of a sudden I wondered if it was because I hadn't been careful enough. Maybe I should have been more afraid. Maybe, and I never said this out loud or even in those words in my thoughts, but it was still there. Maybe I shouldn't have trusted God to protect me. What a horrible thought, right? Then, when my quarantine was over, my immediate reaction was to pull away from people, wearing my mask tight on my face and keeping my distance from others. If God wasn't going to protect me, I would do it myself. Again, I didn't say it, but now that I look back, that's what my actions implied. But no amount of precaution would have kept me from the virus if it was in God's plan that I get it. Even when we don't understand why things happen the way they do, we have to trust the Master. Medicine hurts before it helps. Number 2. When we gave Nikta his medicine, he was physically, mentally, and emotionally stressed. We had to hold him by the scruff and pry his teeth open, and when the medicine went into his mouth, he spit, shook his head, and pulled away. But after the medicine was administered, he was able to sleep peacefully, free from the pain, if only for a few hours. There's part of me that wonders if my COVID experience was a sort of medicine for me. It was something I had to go through for my own good or for one of God's purposes. After all, God was with me the whole time, holding my hand and teaching me again and again that he can bring good from every bad situation. My moments of fear and hurt at God were all worked out over the course of this past week, as God showed me through the scriptures and songs on the radio that fear of anything other than God just opens doors for the enemy. God is for us, not against us. He has plans to prosper us, not to hurt us. We have to trust the Master. Number 3, there is no better place in the arms of the Master. When Nikta first got home with his injury, his first place he went was right into my arms. Likewise, when I saw him after his surgery, he did the same thing. Stumbling and off balance, he was determined to put himself right there in my lap. While we are on this earth, there will be things that will hurt us, whether we put ourselves into a situation to cause us pain, or whether the things we go through are just for our own good. Bad things will happen. And when they do, there's just one place that we can find comfort, the arms of our Master. He will hurt with us, comfort us, and be there with us in our distress. He will watch over us and do the things that need to be done for our own good. We just have to run to him, getting close enough so that he can care for us. We have to trust the Master. God takes care of his own. My experiences with my cat the last couple of weeks have shown me what it means to be both a master and a child of God. While at times we can start to feel unimportant, insignificant in the scheme of things, we must always remember that we are God's children. My great love for the little feline I adopted from the shelter can't possibly be greater than God's love for me, a child he bought with his son's precious blood. Because of this, when trouble comes in this life, I resolve to seek God instead of turning away from him. Fear and hurt will have no place, because I will remember the feeling of waiting for my cat to come home. I will also remember giving my cat the medicine. We don't always understand the bad things that God allows to happen to us, but we know that God will always use it for our good and his glory. And like my sweet kitty, I will always seek comfort and solace in God's loving arms. I will trust the Master.